Hello class, so today we're going to be learning about flower anatomy. As you may guess, anatomy is simply the various parts that make up something. So today we are going to be learning about the various parts that make up a flower. Through this lesson, you are going to be able to learn the different terms that are used when looking at the anatomy of the flower, and you're going to actually be able to have the opportunity to learn about the different parts of a flower. And by the end of this lesson, you will hopefully be able to locate and name the different parts of a flower. So, as we begin, what are the parts that make up a flower? Well, we have a friendly little infographic here that helps describe the location of these different parts. But today, we will be looking at the anther, the filament, which both make up the stamen. We'll be looking at the stigma, the style, the ovary, and all those three make up the pistil. And then we will finally be also looking at the sepals, petals, receptacle, and pedicel. Now there are a lot of different terms here, but don't worry, we'll be looking at each of these terms individually and learning how to locate them on the flower. So first up, we have the male parts of the flower. It's pretty simple. All you need to know is three different terms. These are the anther, the filament, and the stamen. The anther is what contains the pollen. You can see the anther as this yellow form, and that is because it has the pollen, which makes it yellow. It's held onto the filament, which is a tube-like structure that all it serves to do is to hold the anther. And the function of the male parts of the flower are simply to spread pollen, to be able to fertilize eggs. So that's why you see them in a form that reaches outward so that pollinators will hopefully be able to catch on to the pollen and spread it to other flowers. And the anther and filament make up the stamen. So the stamen is just a simplified term of the male parts of a flower. Next up, we have the female parts of the flower. Firstly, we have the stigma. The stigma, as you may guess, is sticky because it needs to catch the pollen. We have this prefix of STI, which can help you remember that the stigma is sticky. This allows pollen that comes from the stamen and the anther to be able to latch on to this surface. After the stigma catches the pollen, it then travels down the style through what is known as a pollen tube. And the style is simply a region that connects the stigma to the ovary and contains the pollen tube. Next, we have the ovary, which, as you may guess, holds the ovules, which, after being fertilized by pollen, are what becomes the seed and later young plant. So, we have in the circular region what is known as the ovary, and then within the ovary we have the ovules, which are these small little circles within the ovary. As you can see, the pollen tube travels all the way from the stigma down into the ovary, so that the pollen is able to ultimately reach its end destination at the ovules. And then, the general term for the female parts of the flower is the pistil, which is made up of the overarching terms of the stigma, style, and ovary. We have now covered the female and male parts of the flower. We also have additional parts of the flower that, while they don't serve for reproductive purposes, they are key to the function of the plant. So, the most common term that you probably already know is the petal. Petals are often colorful, and they're what catches your eye. They also catch the eyes of pollinators, such as bees, and serve to attract the pollinators to be able to transfer the pollen found within the anther that we talked about earlier. We additionally also have sepals, and the job of sepals is when the plant is in the young bud form before it has branched out to the form it is now in, such as this picture. It's in a young bud, and this young bud can fall victim to many different things, but the job of the sepals is to cover the young bud and protect it from any harm. After the plant has developed, these sepals turn into modified leaves below the petals. Next, we have the receptacle. We've covered a lot of different terms, and the job of the receptacle is to hold all of these different parts together, and it is found in this region of the flower. Finally, we have the pedicel. As it sounds similar to pedestal, everything in this flower sits upon the pedicel. It is simply the stem portion of the flower. Now, we have covered a lot of different portions of the flower in this lesson. Hopefully, you've been able to identify now the key components of the flower. So, now we're going to try to label this diagram of the flower. On this diagram, you can find various letters, and your job is to discover the hidden message that they make up. You are going to be able to transfer these block letters over to the side and match them with the term. You can do this by accessing the PowerPoint that I have attached, and once you have completed it, you should have a hidden message. Go ahead and screenshot that document that you have created and send it to me to share the message with me, and I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. Thank you and have a fantastic day.